In the sacred valley of Olympia, where athletes once gathered to honor the king of the gods, there once stood a structure that was the physical embodiment of Greek perfection, the Temple of Zeus. This temple was not just a marvel of Doric architecture, it was the sacred home of one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, the colossal gold and ivory statue of Zeus, sculpted by Phidias. The temple itself, completed around 457 BCE, represented the zenith of the classical Greek style, perfectly balanced, proportional, and imposing. Its design, with its massive columns and elaborate pediments depicting mythological battles, was meant to inspire awe and humility in mortals. But while the other wonders, like the Colossus of Rhodes or the Lighthouse of Alexandria, succumbed to sudden disaster or fire, the Temple of Zeus endured a protracted, slow, and ultimately forgotten death, a tragedy of decay and bureaucratic proscription.
For over a millennium, the temple stood as a beacon of Hellenic identity, surviving the transition to Roman rule. Yet, its fate was sealed not by foreign invasion, but by a powerful internal political decision. The rise of Christianity and the subsequent edicts of the Roman emperors effectively banned the pagan practices that defined the site. The final blow came in 393 CE, when Emperor Theodosius I abolished the ancient Olympic Games, marking a cultural and religious shift that rendered the temple obsolete. This political act of cultural forbidding was the slow, deliberate death of the complex, making it ripe for subsequent destruction. But what ultimately brought down the mighty stone structure was not zealotry, but the indiscriminate power of nature, a series of devastating earthquakes that gradually toppled the columns and buried the entire architectural complex under layers of mud and silt, erasing it from memory for centuries.
Welcome back to Vanished Grandeur, where we investigate the monumental structures that were built with human genius and destroyed by circumstance or decree. Today we stand among the scattered drums of the Temple of Zeus, trying to piece together the blueprint of a civilization at its peak. The temple was the central and most imposing structure within the Altis, the sacred precinct of Olympia. Its sheer size, 64 meters long, 28 meters wide, with columns over 10 meters high, made it a massive undertaking, reflecting the collective wealth and architectural ambition of the Greek city-states. This temple was a collaborative masterpiece, a physical expression of pan-Hellenic unity, built with local Parian marble and limestone. The story of its demise is a cautionary tale about how easily even the most robust and sacred architecture can be forgotten when its cultural function is politically suppressed. The temple was designed by the architect Libon of Elis, who created one of the most significant examples of the developed Doric order. The design was the epitome of classical restraint and harmony. 6 columns on the short sides, hexastyle, and 13 on the long sides, peripteral. This specific proportional arrangement was not random. It followed precise mathematical rules that the Greeks believed reflected divine perfection. The exterior was characterized by the massive, fluted limestone columns, covered in white stucco to mimic marble. The architectural philosophy was about communicating civic and divine order, setting the stage for the enormous chryselephantine, golden ivory, statue within, a structure built to honor the deity and therefore built to represent the highest form of human construction.
The exterior beauty of the temple was defined by its spectacular sculptures. The 2 pediments, the triangular sections above the entrance and rear, represented the pinnacle of early classical sculpture. The east pediment depicted the preparation for the legendary chariot race between Pelops and Oenomus, the mythical foundation of the games. The west pediment showed the battle between the Lapiths and centaurs, Centauromachi. These narrative elements were not mere decoration, They were integral parts of the temple's architectural function, communicating moral and civic lessons to the throngs of visiting Greeks. The integration of sculpture and structural stone created a multi-layered architectural experience, a visual sermon in marble that reinforced the cultural values that were later politically forbidden.
Further enhancing the narrative architecture were the 12 metopes, sculpted relief panels placed above the inner colonnade, depicting the 12 labors of Heracles. These stories, the victory of the hero over chaos and monstrous forces, reinforce the Olympic ideals of physical effort, persistence, and eventual triumph. These metopes were strategically placed so that pilgrims would view them before entering the naos, the main chamber. The sequential narrative provided by the metopes was a form of architectural storytelling, guiding the visitor through a moral and heroic journey before they met the divine presence of Zeus himself. This complex sculptural arrangement made the building a complete architectural monument to Hellenic myth and physical excellence.
Crucially, the temple's construction required a dedicated, custom-built architectural support facility, the workshop of Phidias. This workshop, located just west of the temple, was where the master sculptor and his team spent several years constructing the colossal statue of Zeus. The workshop was identical in size and orientation to the inner chamber of the temple, the naos, allowing Phidias to assemble and perfect the statue's pieces, which were then transferred and installed. The existence of this parallel architectural structure underscores the unprecedented effort required for the entire project. It is a forbidden site itself, a place of genius that was later converted into a Byzantine church, a direct architectural symbol of the cultural shift and religious proscription that swept across the site. The statue of Zeus was the reason the temple gained global fame. Standing approximately 13 meters tall, the chryselephantine figure, made of plated gold and carved ivory over a wooden frame, nearly touched the ceiling. The sheer architectural challenge of constructing such a massive, fragile internal structure capable of supporting tons of precious materials was immense. The building was designed specifically to frame this interior marvel. The light entering the naos was carefully calculated to illuminate the gold and ivory, giving the impression that the god himself glowed. While the temple structure eventually collapsed, the statue itself was likely removed centuries earlier, perhaps taken to Constantinople, where it was eventually lost to fire in the 5th century CE. Thus, the physical architecture of the temple survived the artistic wonder it contained.
The true beginning of the end for the temple was a political and religious ban imposed by the Roman Empire. In 393 CE, Emperor Theodosius I issued an edict abolishing the Olympic Games, viewing them as pagan rituals inconsistent with the state religion, Christianity. This act instantly stripped the entire architectural complex, the temple, the gymnasium, the stadia, of its function. Without the games and the pilgrims, the complex lost its financial and social support, initiating a rapid architectural decay. The building was essentially forbidden from fulfilling its purpose, marking the end of the classical era of the site.
Following the cultural and political prohibition, nature delivered the final physical blow. Historians believe that a series of powerful earthquakes in the 5th and 6th centuries CE systematically toppled the massive stone columns. The once perfect Doric structure collapsed under its own weight, turning the monumental temple into a vast field of rubble. Following the tremors, the river Cladius and the Alpheus, flooding the valley, deposited huge amounts of mud and silt over the site. This sediment acted as a blanket, burying the ruins completely and protecting them from further destruction and looting for over a millennium. The temple was not destroyed by a sudden sharp action, but was forgotten and entombed, a geological fate that preserved its remnants for later rediscovery. The site remained completely buried and forgotten for approximately 1,200 years. The Valley of Olympia, once the center of the Greek world, was reduced to agricultural land, with no surface indication of the colossal architectural masterpieces hidden beneath. This period of decades of forgotten glory is perhaps the most tragic aspect of the story, the complete erasure of a central pillar of Western civilization from collective memory. The architectural brilliance of Libon of Elis lay dormant, a forbidden secret protected only by the earth itself. The loss of such a major historical landmark highlights the fragility of human memory against geological and political forces.
The temple's ruins were finally rediscovered in 1766 by the English archaeologist Richard Chandler, but major excavation did not begin until the 19th century, spearheaded by German teams. It was only then that the sheer scale of the architectural catastrophe became apparent. The archaeologists found the columns lying precisely where they had fallen, their stone drums perfectly aligned. A frozen snapshot of the earthquake's power. The painstaking process of uncovering the pediment sculptures and metopes from the mud revealed the spectacular quality of classical Greek art, proving that beneath the forgotten land lay a treasure trove of architectural and artistic history.
The ruins of the Temple of Zeus present a unique architectural challenge. Unlike the Parthenon, which remains standing, the Olympia temple is almost entirely prostrate. The archaeological goal became one of anastylosis, reconstructing a monument using its original elements. Efforts have been made to partially re-erect some of the columns to convey the building's scale and Doric grandeur. However, the site remains largely a field of fallen stone, a powerful architectural ruin that communicates destruction more than perfection. The ruins are now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, permanently protected from further political proscription.
Despite the ruin, the site's function has been partially revived. Modern architects and planners recognize the enduring cultural power of the Altis. The flame for the modern Olympic Games is lit near the ruins of the Temple of Hera, a smaller temple nearby, using the sun's rays and a parabolic mirror. This ritual connects the ancient, architecturally destroyed past with the modern global event, ensuring that the spirit of Olympia, though not the physical temple itself, will never be entirely forbidden again. The ruined architecture serves as the symbolic bedrock for a modern global ideal.
The story of the temple teaches a crucial architectural lesson. The most enduring legacy of a building may not be its physical form, but its purpose. The temple's decay was inevitable once its spiritual and political purpose was banned. Its longevity was tied directly to the cultural continuity of the games. Its fall was a testament to the fact that architecture, however grand, is ultimately susceptible to the combination of ideological shifts and natural forces.
The great fortune for historians is that the pedimental and metope sculptures were largely preserved by the burial layer of mud and silt. They were removed and are now housed in the Archaeological Museum of Olympia. This act of natural preservation means that while the temple's architecture is lost, the visual narrative that it housed remains intact. This separation of the architectural container from its artistic contents provides a rare opportunity to study classical Greek sculpture in detail, far removed from the environment for which it was originally designed. The Temple of Zeus at Olympia was a model of classical Doric architecture, built to house a world wonder. Its erasure was a process of three distinct phases. First, the political proscription of the Olympic Games by imperial edict, rendering the structure useless. Second, the slow, subsequent decay and collapse due to natural forces, earthquakes. And third, the burial under flood sediments, leading to centuries of complete oblivion. The temple's ruins, now partially exposed, tell a story not just of destruction, but of the complete architectural silencing of a site that was once the spiritual heart of the Western world.
Today, The scattered columns and reconstructed floor plan offer a stark lesson in architectural humility. Where once stood divine perfection, now lies a magnificent ruin. The ruin itself becomes the final, most enduring architecture, a powerful monument to the cyclical nature of civilization. The scattered stones force the visitor to use imagination, reconstructing the colossal figure of Zeus and the soaring heights of the Doric colonnade. The temple's glory is forgotten only on the surface. Its foundational principles continue to inform architecture and our understanding of human achievement.
The loss of the Temple of Zeus, alongside the statue of Zeus, is a monumental tragedy that highlights the vulnerability of physical expressions of belief when they clash with emerging political and religious powers. It shows that sometimes architecture is undone not by a sudden external enemy, but by the very forces of nature and history, once its cultural purpose has been officially forbidden. Our ability to now study its fragments, preserved by the very mud that buried it, is a small redemption for centuries of forgotten glory.
The majestic Temple of Zeus in Olympia now rests, a field of glorious ruins, serving as a powerful reminder of how quickly political edicts and natural forces can consign architectural perfection to oblivion. If you were moved by this investigation into the fate of a world wonder, be sure to subscribe to Vanished Grandeur and hit the notification bell. In our next episode, we will travel to Germany to examine the immense losses suffered during WW2, Dresden after the bombing, rebuilding the Frauenkirche as a symbol of hope. We will analyze the destruction of one of Europe's most beautiful Baroque cities and the architectural philosophy behind the painstaking reconstruction of its most iconic church. What European city's war-torn architecture should we cover next? Share your thoughts below.